Well, welcome, Power Partners. This is Starstyle. Be the star you are. We're coming to the airwaves under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity. We're on Voice America Media, and this is the Empowerment Channel. I am Cynthia Brian, and I am so happy to be bringing you this show today. We're going to be discussing the importance of getting REM sleep as well as conserving water. So different ways you can. I mean, because sleep is really critical to our health. One sleep stage that's called the rapid eye movement, REM. That's where the REM comes from. It plays a pivotal role in our mental processing and our overall health. So, how much do you need and how can you increase it if you're not getting enough? That's coming right up. And then in segment two, of course, water is essential to life and fresh water is limited. So, are you conserving water in your home? Do you have any leaks? And I'll give you some ways to save water and hopefully keep those bills at a minimum because, at least here in California, my biggest bill every month is water. And it never used to be like that, but in the last few years, boy, it has really gotten out of control because it goes up like 20% a year. The miracle moment for today, brought to you by Be the Star You Are charity. The Pear Festival will be happening coming up September 27th. Please visit the website, bethestaryouare.org. Check under events. And we thank our sponsor, the La Marinda Weekly and Star Style Productions, and also M.B. Jesse Painting. This is from Mark Twain. The young are the only ones with enough experience to judge my work. I have to think about that one. What does it actually mean? The young are the only ones with enough experience to judge my work. I guess that kind of means I think we need to be all youthful at heart. Well, let's get to sleep. I know so many of us probably do not get enough sleep. Now, in the last couple of years, I have really been putting a priority on trying to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep because I just realize how much better I feel and how much more I can get done. In my teens, 20s, 30s, gosh, I think I lived on 3 or 4 hours of sleep, if that. And I kept saying, oh, I'll just sleep when I die. Well, you start realizing if you don't get enough sleep, and at least all the research is showing this, you are going to die sooner. So I don't think that's a very good statement. So sleep might seem like it's a really simple activities, but physiologically, it's a really complex multi-stage process, and each sleep stage plays a role in how our bodies and minds rest, recuperate, regenerate for all the things that we're required to do. I mean, we're kind of like a computer, right? But it's a human, bodily computer. So we have to plug ourselves back in and get that battery surge. Now, one sleep stage in particular is really important, and that's the rapid eye movement. That's the REM sleep, REM. And that is recognized by the erratic back and forth eye movements. And it can even be observed behind your eyelids when they're closed. Now, what researchers have found is that REM sleep plays that pivotal role in our mental processing and in our health. But how much do you need? How can you increase it? What is a REM sleep disorder? These are just some of the questions that most people have. So, the REM sleep is when your mental restorative actions occur. It's when the brain transfers the recent short-term memories to the brain's temporal lobe, and that's where they become long-term memories. It's kind of like a night shift filing clerk deciding which elements of the day's data we should save for later. So the process of shifting memories from short-term memory to long-term memory also seems to help us inform in new ways, and it opens doors to those aha moments. So, like when you go to bed, and you're worried about a problem. I know sometimes I go to bed and I just ruminate. I feel like I'm a goat. I'm just like ruminating over this, the same thing. And you wake up, um, sometimes you'll find that you have a solution. And that insight has actually occurred during REM sleep. Now, I always have said, oh, I have little angels that come to me while I'm sleeping and it brings me the answers. And I know when I have a tough problem, or I have to work with a client and I have to make some decision, I always tell them I need to sleep on it. But there's a reason we really need to sleep on it. It is because of that REM sleep that is actually going to give you those moments where you can solve the problems. Now, that is when REM is also when about 80% of your dreaming occurs. And the purpose of dreams remains a matter of debate, but there's a strong and growing evidence that they're very beneficial. So, there's an example from the University of California, Irvine, that found dreaming helps people process their emotional memories, and that processing is linked to the development of emotional resilience. And even when we have nightmares, they actually serve a useful function because feeling fear while dreaming, it actually can lead to better reactions to when we actually have a frightening situation when we are awake. So, sometimes you wake up out of a nightmare and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I have actually woke up before and thinking it's really happening and then realize, oh my, I'm so happy that I'm actually in my own room in my bed. So there is some evidence that says if you have difficulty reaching REM sleep, it could be linked to elevated Alzheimer's rates. It's not conclusive yet, but there is some evidence of that. So this is why REM sleep is so important. Now, what is really happening during REM sleep? The human body and the mind are active. They're really active during REM. Your heart rate and blood pressure are higher than during other stages of sleep. And you're actually burning calories. So if you're if you're thinking losing weight, it's a good idea. Your brain activity is really similar to the same activity when you are awake. But the crazy thing about it is the body tends to appear almost completely inactive during REM sleep. It has little or no movement aside from breathing. And oh, maybe the eye movements mentioned, where your eyes are going back and forth, and maybe you twitch a little bit. So that lack of movement is actually serving a protective function because most of the muscles are temporarily paralyzed during REM sleep to prevent the sleeper from acting out his or her dreams and injuring herself. Um, or perhaps even the person that's sleeping with you in the process. I mean, if you've ever had a dream where you were jumping off a cliff or you were flying or something like that, I mean, and you really feel like you're flying. I fly in my dreams all the time. But, and even if I've had like a time where I have jumped off a canyon, I always land fine. But, um, there is, if you didn't have that paralysis, like if it didn't work properly, you could physically hurt yourself or you could verbally act out your dreams. And it's difficult to say how common this is because people who experience that aren't really aware of it, that it's happened unless they get informed by, somebody who's sleeping with them that is completely scared or startled. In fact, many don't believe that their partners, even after they're told what happened. Although I don't know if you've ever had the experience of waking up, or you're not really awake, but you might feel like a presence in the room and you feel like you want to scream or call out, but you can't move. Well, that's probably because you're in the REM sleep and your body is paralyzed. Now, that condition called the REM sleep behavior disorder, that would be RBD, that happens when you're not really having that paralysis as much. It's more common in older people, like if you're 50 or older, and that can lead to injuries because you might hit your partner that's in bed, you might fall out of bed, you might actually jump, and there's a great danger associated with it because that person isn't having their sleep paralysis. Instead, they're having movements. And it might actually be caused by some underneath, some other underlying health problem. So, in about 1 out of 3 of those cases where the REM sleep behavior disorder turns out to be an early symptom of a neurodegenerative disorder like Parkinson's, or it could even be dementia. So if you're thinking that you are not getting that good REM sleep, you might want to talk to a neurologist. Now, how can you increase REM sleep? It takes time to achieve a meaningful amount of REM sleep each night. It is the final stage of the 4-stage sleep cycle, and each of these sleep cycles is around 90 minutes in length. And most people experience like 5 sleep cycles during a full night's sleep, though younger people might have 6 and older people might just have 4. And the amount of REM sleep people get per cycle can vary, with hardly any REM sleep during the first cycle, perhaps as little as only 30 seconds, maybe 180 seconds. And then longer and longer REM stages occur during, the subsequent cycles. And but by the final sleep cycle, the REM stage could last up to an hour. And I can say for me, I'm pretty sure that my REM is the final, my best sleep is always the final hour. And unfortunately, my husband likes to get up really early. And so he starts like, moving around at 4 or 5. And that's when I'm going into my deepest sleep. And I'm like, don't bug me. Just leave me alone. I need to sleep. So this more REM sleep later in the night pattern means that we get slightly less sleep than normal. And we get to significantly less REM sleep than normal because we miss out on the last and longest REM stage. So some math would suggest that the amount of sleep we should target to avoid missing out on is that final critical REM stage at the end of your evening. So the typical cycle takes around 90 minutes. The typical person gets 5 cycles per night, so 7.5 hours of sleep are required to complete the fifth and the best. So that last hour or that last 90 minutes is really the most important. And ideally, you want to round it out to 8 hours because people don't necessarily fall asleep as soon as they shut their eyes. And 90 minutes per sleep cycle, it's just an average. It's not the same for everybody, and it is not set in stone. And for babies, obviously, it's different because their initial sleep stage for infants up to about 6 months is much different. And it's usually the REM is in the initial sleep stage, and it accounts for about half of their total sleep time. So anything that can chronically disturb someone's sleep can cost them the last and longest REM stage. And that could include if you have a snoring partner, or you have to get up to go to the toilet too many times, or if you have pets in bed with you, or if you have deficiencies in like a vitamin D or magnesium or iron. So you have to take all of these necessary steps to limit those disturbances. And a couple of things that are important. You've heard it before, but need to avoid caffeine late in the day. Not only does late day caffeine consumption make it more difficult to sleep, it is also shown to reduce the amount of REM sleep. So that's one reason not to have alcohol late in the day, or a nicotine or caffeine. Like, don't have it after dinner because it's going to disrupt your sleep. And then for some people that take antidepressants, it could eliminate your REM sleep, and that could really damage you for years. So again, talk to your doctor. And obviously, if you need antidepressants to keep you from feeling suicidal, or it makes life easier for you, it's worth taking despite that potential effect on your REM sleep. But again, it's really important to speak to your physician. And you know, don't think because you're wearing a trackable fitness device it that and it's telling you you're getting enough sleep that you are getting enough sleep because these trackers aren't always accurate. So the best gauge of whether you're getting sufficient sleep is whether you wake up feeling good. Do you feel rested? And if not, whether or not you remember your dreams, that is not correlated at all with whether you're getting sufficient REM sleep. The key to good REM is to wake up and feel great. You're listening to Star Style Be the Star You Are. I am Cynthia Brian. I'll be right back with a business bite. Please stay tuned. You often hear the word culture referring to businesses, organizations. What is culture? Well, think of culture as your team's operating system. When it's working, everything flows. When it's broken, even your best strategies crash. So, this is some interesting information. Culture is how we work together. It's how we make decisions and set priorities. It's how we share feedback and hold one another accountable. It's how we use power and authority, formally and informally. It's how we surface disagreements. It's how we celebrate our wins and we learn from our failures. And it's how we address or fail to address any root causes. So, in short, culture is the human operating system that turns strategy and resources into results. And we want to build cultures that are not only fast and innovative, but grounded in trust, curiosity, and candor. And I think this information I attribute it to Michael Papanek, who is a consultant. Remember, you're the star of your own performance. Turn your passions into power and profit. I'm Cynthia Brian with another business bite from Star Style. For more information, visit cynthiabrian.com. That's Brian with an I.com. Well, we are back, and this is Star Style Be the Star You Are, coming to you on the Voice America Media channel of the Empowerment Channel. I am Cynthia Brian, and we're brought to the airwaves under Be the Star You Are charity. We'd like you to visit the charity at bethestaryouare.org. We have a live event coming up, and we hope that you will visit us. In this segment, I want to talk about water conservation. I know I talk about water probably a lot because I'm a big gardener and the gardens really require water, which means I don't want to waste a drop. And I have a lot of animals and a barnyard, and everybody has needs water. We all need water to survive. So I have pots and buckets in showers, in sinks. I don't waste anything. When I'm doing my washing dishes or rinsing something, I pour the dirty water into something that I can take out to the garden and put it in the garden. So I know water conservation is not on everyone's mind, but it probably needs to be because most of our homes might be connected to city water. And every family is pouring hundreds of dollars a year down the drain. And since much of the country is experiencing chronic water shortages, and even if you have a well, it is important to help conserve this very precious resource. And fortunately, there are ways to conserve water in your home, and that is ranging from inexpensive retrofits to just simple changes in your behavior. Now, I know that there's been so many floods across the United States and the world lately, and it's been devastating. And if only we could channel this water and save it for the places that we need, whether it is agriculture or the golf courses or wherever that water is going. But we need to always start in our own spaces, our homes, our apartments. So I remember I had a friend who lived in an apartment in Southern California, and I was always shocked because water was included in the price of the apartment or the rent, right? So they had a teeny tiny garden, probably not bigger than, 10 feet by 8 feet. Yet they would run the water for hours, and their whole thing was, is, well, we're not paying for it. And my response was, yes, but everybody's paying for it, and you're wasting water. That space doesn't need that much water every day. A couple of times a week, for 10 minutes would be plenty. So there are some ways to I can help you. Now, when it comes how to save water, first you got to locate any leaks. That's your first priority. A dripping sink or a tub faucet, a running toilet, or a leaking underground pipe can cause your water bill to literally skyrocket. And if you're on city water, you want to wait until you're the only one at home, and then you got to check the meter. Now, for me, I live on a hill, I'm on a farm, the meter's far away. It's really hard. Almost need two people and need a walkie-talkie because otherwise I got to go back and forth. But 9 out of 10 homes have some kind of leak. So the next step is to walk through your house. Listen carefully for the sound of dripping or running water. And if you are on a well, you should do that too. You're not going to have a meter on a well, but you could listen, right? And if your search turns up nothing, even though the meter is running, you have a leaking pipe underneath the house or even the driveway. That's when you got to call a professional. We had one going, we could see water underneath a long driveway. It turned out when they built the house, they put the main water line under a concrete driveway, which meant having to dig up the driveway. It was very expensive. It was just crazy. And it wasn't that the pipe had broken, it was just that the coupler, which is the connector, had come apart because we're on a hill and the earth had moved. But it cost lots of money, like thousands of dollars, and such a waste of water. Now, the shower is by far the thirstiest part of the house. The average shower uses about 26 gallons of water, and if you multiply that by the number of members in your family who shower every day, you're looking to save water, this is where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. You can take shorter showers, and you really have to be enforce it, especially for kids who just love to be in there. Now, it used to be I love to take a long shower. I don't do that anymore. Now I take those 3-minute showers. I scrub, I turn off the water, I unscrub. So they're not relaxing anymore. And I keep a great big bucket in the shower to catch every single drops, and I can put it on my plants. Now, don't run the water while it heats up. It doesn't mean you should jump under a cold stream. Instead of setting the shower to your preferred temperature and running the water till it hits your sweet spot, immediately turn the water all the way to hot. And then once it's heated up, then you can dial it back. And that way you're not mixing cold while you wait. And when you set it to that good spot, a quarter of the water you're running down the drain while you wait is cold, and that means it's wasted. And that's where that bucket comes in. So put a bucket, you can make something a pretty bucket if you want, but it really helps. It's amazing. I think I at least get a gallon every single time I'm trying to warm up that water. You can also install water saving products. In the shower, you can get flow restrictors. Now, sometimes if you're getting into a new apartment or a new house, the previous renter or homeowner might have removed the flow restrictor, which means your shower could be putting out like 5 times the amount of water it should. So you could check for a flow restrictor. You just remove the shower head, you look inside, the threaded in for a rounded plastic piece that has tiny holes. And if there isn't one, you can bring the shower head to a store and then ask for help. You could also just buy a low flow shower head. Um, Even with the flow restrictor, you might have an outdated or inefficient shower head. And the ones that put out 1.5 to 2.5 gallons per minute, they cost only about $20. So that might be something that might be interesting to you. Also, you could do a thermostat adapter. There are devices for less than $30 that screw in place between the shower arm and the shower head, and it solves the problem of wasting water while you're waiting for your shower to heat up. There's also something called a rain stick shower. So that was really if you're going to do a bathroom overhaul or a new build, because that's going to cost quite a bit. if you, it might be several thousand, but it does collect the shower water at your feet and uses a micron screen and UV light to clean it in real time and recirculate it through the shower head. So that's called a rain stick. Um, Now, for your entire home, you could get a hot water circulation recirculation pump, and those are less than like $500. And you can purchase that and have that installed. It keeps hot water circulating and available, so you don't have to wait for the water to heat up when you turn on any fixture. If you have old toilets that are 10 years or more, you most certainly will save water by replacing it with a new one because virtually all the new toilets use a fraction of the water that the old models do. And there are a few budget-friendly ways to cut down on water usage in old toilets. And that's, you've probably heard of putting a full water bottle in the tank. It displaces water so the tank doesn't have to fill up so much. So that's just one thing you could do. Now, when you have enough dishes to fill your dishwasher, it's usually more water efficient for you to use the machine than to wash at the sink. That's kind of like, the toilet thing. And when you're going to wash clothes in a washing machine, now the older machines that are 10 to 15 years old, most of them, probably didn't last that long, but you could pay attention to the load size. The newer machines, now, they will use as little as 15 to 20 gallons per load. And if you're upgrading to a newer machine, they actually sense the amount of the clothing in the tub, and they'll only use as much water as required. Whereas as machines built before like 2010, they use like 40 gallons, which is a lot. You can reinstall an aerator in your sink because a lot of people have removed them. And that's from, your kitchen sink, your bathroom sink. But that is a good thing to do. Um, you could reinstall them if they've been taken out. Now, don't run the water the whole time you're doing dishes or while you're brushing your teeth. The same with shaving. Plug the sink, use a shallow basin full of hot water. Let me get to the garden because what people do more than anything is they overwater in the garden, just like I was telling you about the friend's apartment. And with the lawn, try watering only twice a week, not three times. And run your sprinkler on a shorter cycle between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. so the water doesn't evaporate before it saturates the soil. And for vegetable gardens, it's great to use a drip irrigation. Or turn your sprinkler off completely. I turn mine off from probably the end of October, and I try to keep it off until like May. And actually, I like to keep my sprinkler system off and do it manually when I see that the garden needs it. And that way you won't be wasting as much water. But by turning your sprinklers completely off in winter, you're going to lower your water usage during the calculation period, and then your water usage will be billed at a lower rate. And I know I kind of have to average out because in the winter, I can tell all the water, or not all, but most of the water that I'm using is for the animals and irrigation in the hot months. And then in the winter months, it is just definitely in the house because I have everything else turned out. So I hope that helps you save some water. But again, use some teapots, some buckets, or anything decorative that you can use that water for your plants outside. And even when you steam vegetables, just so you know, don't throw out that water. Your plants outside like it because the vegetables have nutrients in it. Well, that's our show for this week. I'm so glad that you're tuned in to Star Style Be the Star You Are with me, Cynthia Brian. Every week, I like to be your lifestyle coach and hopefully give you some advice that is fun and can help you lead a healthier and happier life. For more information about Star Style Productions or to purchase any of my books and the new book, Flap Forward, Fly Free, is now available for pre-sales. You can go to cynthiabrian.com, click on the store. It's at a discounted price, and it'll only be discounted for 1 month because the books will be out in stores next month. So buy it now because it's not going to be discounted again. For Be the Star You Are, visit bethestaryouare.org. And again, check out our events because we have a live event coming up and we're excited to meet you and have you meet many of our volunteers and radio reporters. Until next week, when we celebrate once again, remember that love always wins and kindness always prevails, and smiles will keep us happy. My name is Cynthia Brian for Star Style. I thank you. I encourage you to be inclusive, tell the truth, live with integrity, embrace cultures, love unconditionally, encourage others, be generous, read, lead, succeed, communicate, collaborate, innovate, and most importantly, be your unapologetically authentic self because everyone counts. Just go out into the world and be the star you are. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll be together next week. And I hope you get some really, really good REM sleep this week and start conserving more water.